Greetings to all of you. I am so filled with joy to be back in conversation with Keone Hanalei, who I know you all know who he is, but he is an extraordinary wisdom keeper, founder of Pohala Botanicals, author and alchemist, and a dear friend. And it's so good to be back in conversation with you today, Keone, and to talk about the profound time that we're in with 3I-Atlas, its trajectory, what that means, and how we can be working this transition consciously as humanity.
Yeah, mahalo. Thank you for inviting me back to have this conversation with you. It's such a pertinent time too to speak into sort of what 3i Atlas represents when we go into the new doctrines. So it can be really compelling of what the message could be from 3i Atlas. But of course, Heather, I'm always so grateful to be invited into this space with you. I really cherish these conversations with you. I'm so grateful for everything that you share. And I'm also really, really honored to be your first interview as you return from this epic journey from Egypt. And so, you're just vibrating with all the ceremonial energy right now,
Mm.
Heather.
Thank you. As we were saying before I got on the recording, I'm so glad we're doing this, you and me together, because I so feel grounded and feel the comfort of our conversations, and I'm still straddling the world. So it's
Mhm.
and I think that's part of what we're all dealing with right now, with these energies coming to us from 3I-Atlas, from all of these solar flares and storms. But talk some about how your lineage understands what's happening with the appearance of these comets and with 3I-Atlas in particular.
Yeah, thank you. So when 3i Atlas became visible, the trajectory of all the events that occurred since its appearance became very compelling for me because in the Mu doctrines, there's something called the Mulu. It's the swarm. And the swarm is supposedly what opens us up to a conversation about cataclysm, the potential for cataclysm upon our planet. And it's called the Mu Mulu, the time of the Mu Mulu. And of course, for the viewers, you may be aware that because there's so much activity in our solar system, that it's been dubbed the swarm. 3A Atlas is leading these other planetary visitors, interstellar visitors, and it's called the swarm. And so that already activated me. And so I went into my own sort of investigation of the behavior of 3I Atlas. And first, I want to share this before I go into like my dissemination of what may be occurring with 3I Atlas and some of the other visitors is I was raised by Hawaiian elders, and like many other indigenous cultures, the elders teach in riddles. And so what I do is I observe all the riddles and I'm making my own translation of these riddles. It's important for me to share that because I would say that one of the laws of our universe is that everything is presented to us as a riddle, which means that whoever is receiving the riddle has the authority to make their own translation. Nowhere in the Mu doctrines or in the A, or what we could call Atlantean doctrines, is there anything definitively saying this and this and this. What I'm doing is I'm reviewing the riddles that are presented and I'm making my translations. So my grandmother, Koiki Onalani, one of the greatest things she taught me, she said, before you learn how to speak, you must first remember how to be a poet. And that would suggest that we live in a world that is presented to us as a riddle, and we all have the authority to share what these riddles are. And so, what's the riddle of 3i Atlas? So, what I want to focus on is the very specific trajectory of 3i Atlas in our solar system, because it's actually telling us a very unique story with a very interesting and compelling potential outcome.
Yeah.
And so, Heather, perhaps where we could begin is could you just share with us the perceived trajectory of 3i Atlas in our solar system?
I'd love to. I mean, that's part of what's been so fascinating to me. And I love you're talking about it speaking to us through riddles or through symbolism. And so we have to understand the meaning of all of this. But it appeared in the stars of Ophiuchus, which I think is highly significant. It will be on this trajectory then through the constellations Libra, Virgo, Leo, and then exit. But it passed by Mars on October 3rd. Then it had its perihelion with the Sun on October 29th, passed by Venus on November 3rd, and then is scheduled to make its closest pass to the Earth on December 19th. And Jupiter, if it stays on its trajectory, March 16th. But some of what's also extraordinary, Keone, is that the timing of these passes by the planets coordinate with full moons or new moons. So the pass by Mars and Venus, close to a full moon. Earth and Jupiter, very close to the time of a new moon. So the exquisite timing of this interstellar being is amazing, but also what I perceive as the meaning of its doing these passes in this order. But I really want to hear your understanding of that.
And thank you so much, Heather, for also addressing like where it visited before it came into our solar system, because that's going to be very important too with that Virgo and that Leo as well. And of course with Ophiuchus, right? But within our solar system, it is perceived to have, and now we have evidence that it made its first contact in a way with Mars. And then it went on to Venus. And from those two, it comes to Earth. Because so in the Mu doctrines, when we talk about the creation of the organic beings that you and I are on this planet Earth, there is a protocol in order to make that happen. And so I've shared this in the past, and I'm just going to condense it for the sake of us getting to, the poetry of what 3I-Atlas is doing. But before there were human beings or organic beings on our planet, there was something called the Meanei, or the plasmic beings. And the plasmic beings are that to which is responsible for providing the proper conditions for organic life. So Earth was just this rough scaffolding until the Meanei, the plasmic beings, came upon the Earth and they created the conditions. We can feel that the conditions to which it created was a magnetic field and an atmosphere. And of course, with the magnetic field and an atmosphere, we now have the conditions for organic life. We are enjoying a planet with a magnetic field and an atmosphere, and therefore we are thriving. But there's something that occurred prior to the Meanei coming to Earth, and it's the exact trajectory of what 3I-Atlas is doing. And so it's as if 3I-Atlas is mirroring the actual creation of humanity.
Wow.
Now, when we feel into like that trajectory, after I share that, we could go into maybe like an assessment of what that means. But first, in the doctrines, the Meanei visit what is known as, or come into the energy of what is known as Lachmu. Lachmu. Now, what's interesting is Lachmu is not only the Mu name, but also the Sumerian name for Mars. That's step number one, is this energy known as Lachmu. There has to be a fertilization or a gathering of energy of Lachmu. And so Mars, it goes to Mars. And now it's interesting because it says next it goes to harvest, fertilizes, or absorbs the energy of Lahamu. Lahamu. Once again, in Sumerian and Mu, that's the name for Venus. And so 3I-Atlas is following exactly the trajectory of what the Meanei, our plasmic beings, did in order to cultivate the conditions for life on this planet. Because after Lachmu and Lachamu, then the Meanei come to this energy known as Ki, Ki. That is also the Sumerian and the Mu name for Earth. And so, what we can perceive, and remember, this is all a riddle, okay? What I can perceive is that we are existing, Heather, on this planet and in the solar system as alternating currents because the base composite of our entire universe is electricity. And so this would make sense that in order to exist within an electrical universe, that we function as alternating currents. And so what we can perceive is that what the Meanei did is they harvested, fertilized, gathered, absorbed what you will, these two alternating currents that was necessary to provide the conditions for organic life. And this is not just the magnetic field and the atmosphere. This is now also the qualities that make you and I a human being. What's so fascinating is that for generations, thousands of years, millennia, Mars has been attributed to masculine energy. Venus has been attributed to feminine energy. So, what the riddle is likely telling us is that the alternating current of this planet, Heather, is masculine and feminine energy. Of course, we see the yin and the yang, and this is something that has been perpetuated for generations, for thousands of years. But what the Meanei and what 3I-Atlas just brought to our attention, and I should say more accurately, brought to my attention, it wasn't clear until 3I-Atlas did this. I'm like, oh, the alternating current of our planet is feminine and masculine energy.
That is so extraordinary. And do you think it's not only mimicking that or mirroring that path of our creation, but it also seems to me extraordinary that it's made this pass by Mars and then by Venus, then they will both go into their superior conjunction with the sun
Hmm.
to be in that alchemical energy now seeded by 3I-Atlas to be transformed. So it almost feels to me like we're clearing the distortions of that alternating current of the sacred masculine, the sacred feminine. We're being guided back into how they're meant to be in right harmony with each other.
Absolutely. And that's what I felt too, Heather. I also felt like it was a proper reactivation of the necessary qualities of feminine and masculine energy because upon the fluency of feminine and masculine energy, that alternating current spins so quickly that we actually come into what we could call our androgynous self. Another way to say androgynous self, because that doesn't necessarily mean our physical body may mutate, but androgynous self means we're holistic. The definition of holistic means no one part is explicable without referencing the whole. A great way to kind of fathom this is I'm going to invite the audience to take a quarter on a flat surface and spin the quarter. We can see that the quarter that is spinning, there's two sides to it, right? Those are alternating currents that are now functioning as holistic or androgynous. Now, what's so compelling is when you review and see what's happening when you spin that quarter, you're going to see a shadow. And the shadow is actually the infinity eight symbol, which means upon the proper spinning of the alternating currents of feminine and masculine energy, we come into timelessness.
Mm.
Timelessness is likely the path or the gateway of resolving a timeline. We may be stuck in a timeline right now. And what 3I-Atlas is wanting to support us in is expediting this slow motion that we seem to be moving in, spinning it so that we can come back into the convergence point of that infinity eight symbol and come back into timelessness so that we can complete the timeline that we perceive to be stuck in. Now, that the journey doesn't end there. The 3I-Atlas has more to go, just like you're sharing, Heather, because in the doctrines, it states that from Earth, once it comes to Earth, it can go in two very specific directions that will determine what happens upon Earth and our solar system. I want to bring up the two C's. The two C's are completion and cataclysm. And so once 3I-Atlas visits Earth, and Heather, can you remind us of the date for that?
December 19th,
Okay, so
just before the solstice.
Wonderful. So once 3I-Atlas reinstates the alternating currents of feminine and masculine energy upon the earth, it's going to allow humanity to do as it wishes with that, right? Because this universe is comprised and governed by consent. And so 3I-Atlas can't bring this alternating currents of feminine and masculine energy onto earth and say, you must do this, you must behave like this. It's saying, I'm restoring the alternating current. Humanity, you may do as you wish. It's free will. Based upon what we do with the restoration of the alternating current of feminine and masculine energy will determine where we go. So I have great news for everyone. Great news. Because as of now, okay, as of now, we're in early November, so still as of now, yay, the trajectory is for Jupiter. This is very good, everyone. This is very good. There's another direction it could go to that might be, I wouldn't say bad, but it's going to be a lot of work for us again. And that's Saturn. If it chooses to go to Saturn, let me explain how I unlock that riddle. So the word for Jupiter in once again, and you'll notice that a lot of Sumerian words are very similar to the Mu dialect. And so all the planets in the Mu dialect actually share with the Sumerian dialect or Sumerian language as well. It's just very compelling coincidence, maybe. But the word for Jupiter in Sumerian and in Mu is Kishar. Kishar. The name for Saturn is Anshar. So Jupiter is Kishar, Saturn is Anshar. So let's translate what those words actually mean. So Shar means to fulfill. Ki for Jupiter, Ki, remember, Ki is the name for Earth.
Yeah.
Ki. And so Ki Shar, Earth is fulfilled. If 3I-Atlas carries on its trajectory to Jupiter, this could suggest that humanity, Earth, our solar system, maybe even the universe is coming to a completion point. Like, congratulations to all of us. However, if for whatever reason 3I-Atlas takes a turn and heads towards Saturn, we're looking at a different trajectory for humanity because remember, Shar means to fulfill. An, the word for Saturn is Anshar. An means to be incomplete. And so it's suggesting that 3I-Atlas would say, upon visiting the Earth and seeing what is happening when I restore the alternating currents of feminine and masculine energy, I'm actually going to go to Saturn because this is all still incomplete and a cataclysm must occur so that we can reset and start over again. And I know that for many of us, we do have these even cellular memories of we're in a repeat. We keep repeating, we keep repeating, we keep repeating. And are we really going to choose that again? And what this trajectory and the riddle of what 3I-Atlas is showing us is that perhaps in order for us to come into a completion event, it's to come into holistic, energetic androgyny within our feminine and our masculine energy. And so I just want to address that for a moment, just to give some detail about what that could be, feminine and masculine energy. How has that become something that we all experience as fluent? So first, feminine energy, and I want to take the trajectory of 3I-Atlas as well, because notice it goes to Mars first, which is very interesting because Mars is very, and masculine energy is very active. So some people will translate the trajectory of the Meanei to Mars first as Mars was a failure. It was a failure because something was missing. And so what the Meanei were not aware of, though, is that they were actually harvesting necessary ingredients to create an alternating current. But they tried to create organic life on Mars first. It was a failure. And so they decided to go to Venus. And once again, it was a failure. Then they became Ma aware. It's like, oh, it's both of those qualities constitute actual organic life. Okay, let's go to Earth then. And then took those energies and went to Earth. And so when we go to Mars, they harvested the masculine energy. Of course, it didn't work because in order for masculine energy, which we could describe as the verb of who we are, it's activity. Now, in order for me to function properly as a verb, I first need a noun. I first need to be a noun. That's feminine energy. And so they went on to Venus in order to fertilize, harvest that noun energy. So first, I want to focus on what does it mean to exist as a noun? I want to take a clue from the symbol of the feminine, which is the upside down capital T. So the upside down capital T, I'm gonna like just spread that out. And I'm gonna go all over the world and I'm gonna translate what the world is sharing with me about what that symbol represents. Remember, this is all based in riddles. And in ancient Chinese hieroglyphics, the upside down capital T represents autonomy. And so it's saying in order to be fluent within our feminine, in order to restore the goddess, we must affirm that we all have a right to exist. And before we started this recording, I was sharing with Heather what my translation of patriarchy is. And it's very easy for me to translate it. If patriarchy means we have to earn everything. And what we are dismissing in patriarchy is that we already belong. We're trying to earn something that we already belong. Therefore, the goddess is being dismissed. We are not functioning as a noun. We are in this hyperbolic speed of always having to be in activity without any establishment. In Hawaiian and Mu, we often refer to feminine energy as the po'ai. So po'ai could be sphere, it could be circle, but it also represents domain. To be in my domain, I am established. I belong. I have a right to exist. And so that will be the challenge, but also the invitation for all of us is, do you even feel you belong? If you feel you have to earn your belonging, perhaps you don't have relationship with the goddess. And so we're all restoring relationship with the goddess by affirming, I have a right to exist. I don't need to earn that. Just me being here is my authority of belonging. Heather, do you want to share anything about that very unique thing about feminine energy and belonging?
Well, part of what I find so important in what you're saying, Keone, is so many people have described, and I've experienced the energies coming from 3I-Atlas as these waves of love, unconditional love. And part of what you're describing, and part of my understanding of the sacred feminine, is it is about being in right relationship with all that is. And that starts with that experience of being loved in who we are, not what we do. And I think that's what you're describing is that energy of the goddess. It is that sense of being held in this love that allows us to feel we belong, we matter, we're seen and loved for who we are. And
Beautiful.
it feels like 3I-Atlas is reminding us of that, to be able to integrate that. So then, from my perspective, the sacred masculine action is coming from that right foundation. And
Yes.
then it becomes an expression of the true secure self
Yeah.
and an expression of then being in right relationship with each other and everything around us.
Yes, sister, that's so beautifully shared. Yeah, the restoration of the goddess in a practical way that we can even feel about the restoration of the goddess or the inherent feminine is first, do you even find yourself interesting? Because I don't think a lot of people, right? If you really, really sit with that, and then we notice that we behave as always ejecting ourselves, finding other people or things more interesting than ourselves. That's where we come into subservience. That's where we outsource ourselves. That's one of the ways to which we dismiss our inherent feminine is outsourcing ourselves. So first step one, right? Do you even find yourself interesting? Can you be with yourself independent of any distraction of the exterior conditions? Because exactly as you're sharing, the divine masculine, which I call the hero, is simply translating what it's like to belong. That's it. I'm not earning it. What I'm doing is I'm receiving instructions from my feminine and I'm simply expressing and translating what is it like for me to belong? Because even masculine energy, as that verb, right, it loves activity. Masculine also is very rational, it's analytical, and that too, which is rational and analytical. What is one of the greatest things for something that is rational and analytical? Instructions. It needs instructions. But if it's not receiving instructions from its inherent feminine, that's why it's reaching to the exterior conditions for instructions on who do I need to be? What must I need to do? This is what's happened in the world of academia, which I feel is one of the crown jewels of patriarchy, academia, where we're all ejecting ourselves, trying to be what we perceive to be approved according to the external conditions. We are now dismissing the goddess. And so the instructions that the masculine receives in order to activate itself and express what is it like for me to be a sovereign being who belongs in love? That's the instruction that the masculine gives, and that's the expression to which we all may exude. That becomes our contribution because masculine is also very, very interested in that contribution. What is my contribution? Many of us, that's what we feel through the day, perhaps. Maybe, our whole lifetime, we're trying to attain a kind of contribution. Okay, exuding what it's like for me to be a being in love, independent of what I perceive to be approved from the exterior conditions, that's my contribution because we all know that this universe is comprised of something known as resonance, frequency. Remember, unity consciousness is music of the spheres, meaning we all get to exude a very specific song, a tone, a note. That is our contribution because we must lend ourselves to the orchestration of this universe. And that is by way of the fluency of the alternating current that is feminine and masculine energy. And I always think it's so great because I love the riddle of did they not know what they were doing? The band they went to Mars first. They're like, something's off. Like, we can't make this work. What is happening, right? Or were they aware? They're like, actually, we're harvesting the necessary components, masculine, feminine. Maybe if they went to the feminine first, it would not have worked because if they went to the noun first, maybe Venus would have been properly established. It would have been a very different, maybe, scenario. But for us on Earth, that was the trajectory to go to masculine first because they knew that it was incomplete. And so they needed to do something else. That's where they found Venus and feminine energy. They said, now we're going to reverse it again, establish on the earth feminine energy first, because the noun has to be established. And then the masculine comes into fluency because the feminine, the goddess, is established. And so, what 3I-Atlas could be suggesting to us is look, I'm restoring feminine and masculine energy, I'm reactivating everyone. And from what you decide what to do with that energy, we have two choices. I can take us all to Kishar, and it's complete. Congratulations, it's complete. And as of right now, the trajectory is Jupiter, so this is great news. But also, for many of you who have, followed the journey of 3I-Atlas, there's the self-propulsion, something like self-propulsion that's being detected on 3I-Atlas, which means it could actually change direction. It could change direction. And so as it flies by Earth, it does an observation and an assessment, it could turn to Saturn. And so this is why I want to encourage all of us to really come into fluency of the alternating current of our feminine and masculine energy. First and foremost, do you find yourself interesting? Can you just be with yourself and affirm that you belong? And from there, can you invite your masculine to express what it's like for you to belong?
Hmm. Beautiful, powerful, Keone. And part of what you're describing when Mars is in that energy of the masculine is in its right balance, it becomes our unique expression of our fractal experience of being a part of the unified whole. We're each carrying our own unique gifts and abilities to contribute to the community. And when Mars is in balance and feels that sense of belonging, then it becomes our unique self expression rather than this pressure to perform, to be trying to fit others' expectations, trying to fulfill the societal expectations in a way that leads us into a false self.
And I believe what keeps us locked in a patriarchal timeline to which we're being invited to complete now. But of course, to complete a patriarchal timeline, we must reintroduce and reinvite the goddess, the feminine back, because remember, the goddess is the primary informant. Without the goddess, we're always going to be reaching to the exterior conditions to tell us who and what we are. The goddess knows who and what we are. But also, the goddess is very diplomatic, right? The goddess is like, because I'm not governed by the linear, I'm not looking at my watch thinking, like, wow, when is this guy finally going to recognize me? It's like, no, it's all based in consent. You must do what you want to do and need to do in order to be restored into the recognition of the importance of the alternating current of feminine energy. And Heather, I do want to address what you shared when we go out, right? The trajectory of 3I-Atlas as I was coming in, because we can even see the alternating current was exhibited there. Leo and Virgo.
And Ophiuchus. I mean, it
Right.
starts in Ophiuchus, which I think, part of my sense is that 3i Atlas is so trying to wake us up, call us back into love, and support us in healing. So
Mhm.
it first appears to us in the stars of the great healer, Ophiuchus, who is that carrying that energy of the sacred masculine, but holding the serpent, which is the most ancient symbol of the sacred feminine. So it is such a powerful symbol of being in our wholeness and that full integration of the sacred masculine and sacred feminine. And that's where it starts.
Most certainly. That's why it's so compelling to me too, because even if we can perceive that our solar system exists in a way independently, right, of that which exists out of the Oort cloud, then we can feel like that's an alternating current as well, and they mirror one another. They mirror one another. And so that is also functioning like an alternating current. And we can even perceive that that just on and on and on and on. We live in a universe of alternating currents. And I feel like, and for me, I'm very confident in sharing that because I do know that this is an electrical universe. That's very obvious to me. And of course, electricity functions best and most appropriate when functioning as alternating currents, which means everything that exists within an electrical universe must function as an alternating current. That to which likely is the alternating current of you and I as organic beings on this planet is feminine and masculine energy. We must spin that alternating current to such a degree that we now converge into that infinity sign of timelessness once again, so we can complete this event. That coin, those alternating currents are so slow right now that we are locked in a very specific timeline. Of course, that's up to the audience to discern, like, what is the timeline that we are locked in? Maybe it's patriarchal timeline, maybe it's an Atlantean timeline, but it's definitely a timeline that we are locked in. 3i-Atlas comes in and says, I'm going to speed it up and see what happens. You get to decide what happens when I speed everything up, because that's something that we're all experiencing right now too, is we feel like we're in the quickening, right? It's getting to the brain a little bit, right? It's like can't put thoughts together, right? It's likely because we're speeding up, everything's speeding up. But remember, right? That's our natural state, though. From what that coin, the proverbial coin, right? That shows the infinity sign, our natural state is that speed. And so we're just adjusting to that.
Well, and from what you're saying, Keone, don't you feel like this is also a choice point that we're able to move into a whole new way of being human? I mean, I've been in conversation with Kelly Kolodny, who's been channeling Angel Raphael, who's saying we're meant to birth a whole new way of being human on
Yes.
the time of the solstice after 3I-Atlas passes by the Earth. And from my perspective, in terms of the timing of this in the precessional cycle, how extraordinary that we have exited the Kali Yuga, the time of our forgetting, our lowest level of consciousness, last equinox, March equinox. And this pass by Jupiter is scheduled to happen a few days before March equinox. This is such a year of radical transformation. And it feels to me like we are at this critical point in the precessional cycle when 12,000 years ago we did experience a cataclysm.
Mhm.
And this is now a critical choice point. And from my perspective, 3I-Atlas and the energies of the cosmos are saying you can get off the wheel. You don't
Mhm.
have to keep repeating the cycle of remembering and forgetting, of ascending and descending consciousness. This is time for the earth, as you said so beautifully, to come to its completion,
Mhm.
to ascend into a whole new way of being, and to support the galaxy in moving into this whole new way of being. That
I
this is
believe
what
that.
is possible.
And I really enjoyed that conversation with Kelly Kolodny, and especially the one where she channeled 3I-Atlas. That was so poignant. Heather, I believe that what's happening right now in our solar system is we are given the conditions in order to match what is already occurring within the universe. And I've shared this before about our solar system. I believe it's the last frontier.
Mm,
Because many of us, we have this recognition that there's something so very special about this universe and why there's so much interest in our solar system from what we perceive to be life that extends outside of our universe. And sometimes the arrogant human can be like, well, because we're the center of it all. But what I feel is that we're actually the last frontier.
yeah.
Our whole galactic family lovingly is saying, come on, you got this. Complete it. You got this. Spin it. Join us in the transfiguration event of the entire universe. And so I do believe that based upon what we can accomplish in the time of 3I-Atlas, we can join our galactic family and complete this entire universe. If we do not complete, I don't feel that the rest of the universe is looking at us as if we're somehow inadequate or incompetent. This is part of the cycle, right? If anything, there's just excitement around it. And so I, of course, don't want to put pressure on all of us and be like, it's now or never kind of thing. It's like, no, it's what we choose to do because our soul needs to mature in a very specific way, and perhaps there's more for our soul to experience. But what I do know is that we are given the opportunity right now to make that decision independently. My soul is complete. Okay, my soul is complete. My alternating current of feminine and masculine energy, I am holistic, I am androgynous, I'm energetically androgynous. There's one more riddle that I'd love to share because this can also be like a nutrient for all of us to come into further inquisition with what's happening right now. And that's to bring up the ferns again.
Yes.
So in our previous conversation, Heather, we did bring up this fern called kihi fern. I have kihi right here. This is kihi
Oh,
fern.
it's tiny.
It is. And this fern in ancient Hawaiian and Mu culture holds the energy or the codes of quantum leaps. Now, in our last conversation, I shared that this fern was believed to be extinct. And clearly, I have it with me right now, which means it's now back, and not just back, it's back in abundance. That's very interesting. It's an anomaly that it went from being extinct to all of a sudden, boom, it's in a bloom. And it's likely because we are in a quantum leap.
Mm,
Because, of course, the fern is matching the energy to which is nourishing it. This is my time, is what the fern is saying. Like, I'm coming in like fullness right now because we're in a quantum leap. And I want to share the riddle within Kihi Fern and what it's telling us the quantum leap is. Remember, everyone has, you all have your authority to translate the riddles. That's what's so great. Riddles is so diplomatic, it's so generous. I'm just going to share my translation of this riddle. But the nickname of Kihi Fern, and this has been the nickname for maybe even 100 years, but the nickname is pendant fern. Pendant fern. Now, Heather, if we look at this fern, That's weird. It doesn't really look like a pendant, but okay, it's pendant fern. And so perhaps that's a riddle. Heather, where does a pendant rest?
Right on your chest, above
Yeah,
your heart.
right, right. And so the riddle could be that Kihi, in support of what's happening with 3I-Atlas, because remember, Kihi is an organic being just like us. So it's saying, all right, humans, I get it. I get it. So I'll help you out. Okay. So the quantum leap, what 3I-Atlas is sharing is that we need to come into restoration and reoccupy our hearts. Now, first, what is the heart? Okay. So the heart is actually a vortex and it's a muscle, right? We can actually uncoil the heart. And when it coils itself back up, it's a vortex, it's a spiral. And so it's already telling us, the center of our being is supposedly mirroring the universe. So it's saying that the universe, everything's spherical. But what's interesting about the biology of the heart, the anatomy of the heart, is that in the very center of the heart, there's something called the myocardium. And it's very interesting because the myocardium, it's like it's an air pocket. It's like a blank space, or is it blank? Because actually what exists within the middle of the heart is a black hole. It's the energy of a black hole. Remember when we spun that coin and it showed the infinity sign? The black hole now the black hole, the densest form of gravity, there's a name for something that is at its densest form of gravity, and that's called atemporal or not governed by time. And so even this fern is suggesting we need to come back into the convergence of the self. Choose your heart, occupy your own heart. You can attain timelessness because at the center of our heart is that sudden spontaneous black hole. What this could suggest in a very practical way is, I want to share it like this. I love I love questioning people. I love getting to know like, what's interesting to people, including, what people fear. Not that I'm going to exploit that, but because it's just something that I think is important for all of us to be very open about those kinds of things. And so for the past 8 years, as I've been engaging with the spiritual community, before, 2017, I was not so much in the spiritual community. Maybe I was in the academic community or maybe like Hawaiian cultural community, but not in like what we could call like neo-spiritual community. But since I've been in the spiritual community, I've asked over the years, almost everyone, what do you fear? And Heather, the most common response within the spiritual community is fraud,
Mm,
to be deemed a fraud. Now, we can feel that that perhaps means that we're being swallowed by all the trends. And as a result, we're being inauthentic. The other swing of that pendulum is we're so afraid of being who we truly are because there's so much condemnation. And so, regardless of what swing we exist in, either because there's a lot of trends within the spiritual community, and so we're all just assimilating to the trends, which means we're being inauthentic. That would suggest that we're not living in our heart, we're living in something or someone else's heart. So, we're being pulled into something or someone else's force of gravity. Now, we're playing with quantum physics now, because if I am in the favor of someone else's gravitational force, if I'm in plagiarism, if I'm in fraud, if I'm in all the trends, that to which exists between me and that, so I'm point A, that's point B, that to which exists between me and point B, it's called distance. Distance needs to be measured. Measurement is what qualifies time. And so all we're doing is creating more and more and more time. Now, all the time to which I create as a organic being who has kuli anna or responsibility within this universe, this means that I have to also reconcile all the time to which I create. Organic beings to which we go through a phenomenal process called decay. If our body is outlived by all the time to which we're creating, we have to reincarnate. And now we're looping and looping and looping until we can reconcile all the time. Of course, the antidote to all of that is to select the own heart, to come back into authenticity and authority within the own heart. And therefore, we resolve all time because we're now in timelessness. Now, the other swing of that pendulum is we're so afraid to be who we truly are because of condemnation, because of rejection. And so that is something that we're all being confronted with. Because remember, unity consciousness means music of the spheres, the spheres. It's very interesting because unity consciousness actually has everything to do with contrast, not assimilation. Because sort of the agenda, perhaps that I've been fed at least, is saying that unity consciousness means everyone is like this, everyone does that. And then I feel guilty when I don't agree with that, but somehow that doesn't feel right to me. That's called assimilation. That's not unity consciousness according to me. Because even feel it like this. We're on this trajectory of something called the rainbow bridge, right? Heather, what is required for a rainbow to even exist?
Color, many colors.
Right. Contrast. Contrast. It is required. Contrast is required for this rainbow bridge to which we're all on. And so Kihi Fern coming in, supporting us, saying, all right, I'm called Pendant Fern. Solve the riddle. Oh, okay. It's on the heart. Oh, we must come into the occupants of our own heart once again in order to accommodate the completion event to which 3I-Atlas is sharing with us.
And part of what you're saying, Keone, that's so important is that your description of the heart mirrors our galaxy. That central black hole, that space, that fertile void within the heart is mirroring the black hole, our galactic center. So again, as we connect to our hearts, we're opening to that source field intelligence of all that is. And you're also describing so beautifully what it means to truly move in to the paradigms of the Aquarian age, which are about androgyny, integrating the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine, but honoring the diversity of who we each are in the context of community and interconnectedness with each other and all that is. But it's the both and. It's the diversity in the oneness of all that is.
Oh, I love that, Heather. And yeah, you just, really shared with us the alternating current, right? That is our galactic center and our own heart. And if we can choose select to exist in our own heart, we are now functioning as the alternating current of our galactic center, which means that everything in between me and that we have immediate fluency of. Immediate. And so Kihi Fern, it's so simple. It's saying, where do I rest? Where does a pendant rest? It rests on your heart. You take it from there, right? And so this is the invitation to the audience is feel into if a fern that represents quantum leaps is saying focus on your heart, uh, come into your own translation of what that is and how you can invite yourself into that experience so that we are all functioning once again as alternating currents. And initially, right, it may seem like we are on this very solo trajectory because we must come into fluency of what it means to be an individual in this world of complexity. From the authority and the fluency of ourselves, we then lend ourselves to the resonance and the frequency of that to which exists outside of us, instead of us being overpowered by the energy that is existing outside of us. I love, my grandmother would say, power must be met with power as to ensure nothing or no one is overpowered. Because
Mm.
this universe is held together by something called homeostasis. And in Mu Hawaiian magic, we call it heka or ho'okalakupua. The key is there can never be a measurable difference, meaning that a witch or a warlock, for every sacrifice that is made, there must be an invocation. And for every invocation, there must be a sacrifice. This is to ensure that there is never a measurable difference. We must uphold homeostasis, and that includes the homeostasis within ourselves. If we do not have fluency of the alternating current of feminine and masculine energy, we are not existing in a homeostasis within ourselves. Therefore, we cannot lend ourselves to the fluency and the authority of the universe. Coming back into fluency of my alternating current as feminine and masculine. And I always say it like this, Heather, right? I may be a gendered male, and this is part of the challenge, right? The part of the challenge is this, the coin came so slow This is another conversation, but in Mu, we're all physically androgynous. But what happened is it became so slow that we split. We split. And that coin even fell to one side. So that's the fall, right? The fall. It fell to one side and we split into genders. And that's part of our challenge is although we have this very perceived definitive physical body, that doesn't disqualify us of the alternating current. I'm a gendered male, but I'm 100% feminine as I'm 100% masculine. I affirm my authority of my feminine and my masculine. I allow it to coexist, cohabitate in harmony within myself. Therefore, I become holistic and androgynous. I am in that sudden spontaneous black hole of my own myocardium, which means I have fluency of the universe as well.
Mm, beautiful. And part of what I think you're describing is that this dance of coming back into androgyny is to step out of the duality and the polarization that we've gotten caught in on the planet. And that part of the the shadow aspect of patriarchy is the suppression of the sacred feminine and the repression of the goddess. And as we can reclaim these alternating currents, we come back into harmony, we come back into wholeness, and then we're emanating that out. And how perfect that 3I-Atlas passes Mars, then it passes Venus, then they both are going to merge under the beams of the sun to be in their alchemical healing process, to emerge, and they emerge, both of them, back into view shortly before 3I-Atlas passes Jupiter, showing us a new way to be in the energies of the wholeness of the masculine and feminine. But what ways, Keone, do you think we can be working with this transition to be on this path of completion, to be in a process of healing and awakening, to be activating this evolutionary leap, this quantum leap?
Yeah. I feel like on the most practical level, it's what I shared previously about coming into first questioning the self. Do you even find yourself interesting? Because what I can perceive if I observe the collective is that there's catastrophic ejecting of the self. There's a lot of
Mm,
dissociation, and that could be from unconsciously not even finding the self interesting,
wow.
finding other
So
people interesting.
I just want to stop for a minute, Keone. That's so powerful. So that if we're internally in that energy of catastrophic collapse, then we're going to emanate that out, and that becomes our external reality. So we need to clear that within ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, and that for me, because this is how it worked for me, is I just open myself to the conversation. Do I even find myself interesting, or do I find others more interesting that I'm always ejecting? And so coming into a deeper relationship, who am I? And audience, question yourself. Who are you? Who am I? Who am I? Independent of what I'm being told is approved. Right? Because remember, spiritual community, there's a fear of being deemed a fraud. And if that means we are afraid of being condemned because we're being told, no, that's not real, what you're saying is not real, right? Then we assimilate to what we perceive to be approved, then we are ejecting ourselves. So, first and foremost, can you come? Remember, feminine energy is all about establishment. Can I establish myself within this body right here? Then from there, I can begin to translate that as instructions to my masculine so that my masculine can translate, express what that's like for me to a being who belongs. What's it like for me to experience love? That's how I express myself. That becomes the vibration, the resonance, which actually becomes our music. And this universe is very musical. And so it's as if we haven't taken our place in the orchestra because we're too busy relying on someone else's instrument,
Mm.
right? And so there's this huge orchestra, maybe there's like three people there. And the whole right, Heather, and all the masses of billions of people are relying on these three people because, especially in patriarchy, we're told, right, perhaps that there are approved personalities. There's approved personality. This is how you have to be. If you're a woman, This is how you have to function and behave. If you're a man, this is how you have to function and behave. And therefore, you got only two or three people in that whole orchestra. Everyone's watching and relying on those two or three people. Heather, the last time I checked, there's 8 billion human beings, which means there's 8 billion approved personalities.
That's a great image, Keone, and it also reminds me of the sense that, in a particular time frame, it's like playing the trumpet is the way to go. That's the
Yeah,
superior path. So then you don't have any violins, you don't have any cellos, you don't have any other instruments, you just have the trumpet. And
right.
part of the beauty of the harmony of the spheres is that diversity, that harmonic of each of us finding our true tone, our true song to blend into this orchestra of the universe.
Absolutely, Heather. So beautiful. And yeah, that's our contribution is our instrument. It's our song. And to what specifically what Kelly was sharing about we're coming into a kind of resurrection, right? So let's even feel into when we go into the sudden spontaneous black hole of the heart, there's the black hole, that's not the final destination. The final destination is what's on the other side. That's what's happening right now. And what we can perceive to be occurring on the other side of the black hole is resurrection. And so that's what we're being invited into. But there are these steps that must be honored. There's a protocol. 3I-Atlas is showing us the protocol, activating us to remind us of what the protocol is so that we are in the proper conditions of not just now cultivation of organic life on the planet. We can perceive that to be accomplished now. We're now cultivating the conditions for resurrection. And that's through the heart, the sudden spontaneous black hole.
Mm, beautiful, so powerful. And it reminds me, Keone, of my experiences in Egypt and how so many of the ancient ceremonies were about how do you face your fear of death to be in your own experience of resurrection, to come into the truth of who you are and your alignment with your soul self. How do you, and I feel like that's part of this time that we're in with 3i Atlas is it's calling us to clear away what the dense, heavy energies that weigh us down, that block us, both from being in alignment with our soul selves, but also block us from love.
Mm,
So
mm,
much of what you're talking about is the foundation is the sense of belonging because we're loved. And for me, it is extraordinary to see how the cosmos is orchestrating this incredible unfolding with 3i Atlas reminding us that we're loved.
mhm,
And this fern that you're sharing with us is saying, you're loved here. The earth is showing you how to be in the quantum leap.
mhm,
We're being held by the earth and sky to be moving through this new birth if we
mhm.
allow ourselves open to that and fundamentally receive the love that's there for us.
I love that. I love that, sister. And that was the goal of Kamehameha in the Mu doctrines of how this universe came to be, is that the intelligence of love said, I not only want to experience it, I want to give and receive it as well. And therefore, God, source, separated itself from itself so that it could love itself. So love can be self-reflective. That is the ultimate alternating current.
Mm, beautiful, beautiful. Which means that when we're in that timelessness, we're in that unity of the alternating currents, we mirror back that reflection to each other and emanate that love for each other also.
And that's how we spin it. That's how it spins it, right? We come into the proper speed to which we are accustomed to once again, which will lead us into the completion.
Mm. Thank you, Keone. This is so powerful and so important in terms of our awareness of how we co-create this outcome.
Mhm.
That this isn't something happening to us. this is something that is occurring through us,
Yes.
and that we need to participate in this process. So, do
Yes.
you have a prayer or a blessing that you could share with us as we close to support us in aligning with these energies and opening to the shifts that we're being called into?
I certainly do. So I've shared a transmission from Pe'ahi Fern, from the Fern of Chaos before, and I'm going to share it again because it's still relevant. And remember, Pe'ahi, that energy of chaos, which Pe'ahi represents, the energy of chaos. Chaos just means primordial intelligence. And so we're closing that circuit by reuniting with the genesis of intelligence itself, which could be translated as chaos. And so for many of us, we are invited to retranslate something that we've been sort of rejecting because of the connotations to which it carries. But chaos, according to the fern, Pe'ahi, it's primordial, primary intelligence. We're closing the circuit. Remember, we exist spherically. And the message of Pe'ahi actually correlates to what Kihi is sharing about coming back into the sudden spontaneous black hole, because the whole message of Pe'ahi is consume yourself, consume yourself, consume yourself. And so I would love to share once again the transmission of Pe'ahi Fern. Expression proliferates within the meaning of wholeness. Wholeness has already been determined. From erratic places, the chambers of dreams and witness, my inhale commands you return. The brilliance of my great exhale is the reoccurrence of the wisdom of all creation. Should you believe in the recall, this is flow state. I have assumed the Lady of the Dawn, the psychomythic representation of the power of the human spirit. Won't you recognize the great movement of the meaning, or will you devour the very center of humanity? My dream has always been to consume myself. Aloha ma.
Aloha ma. Thank you, Brother Keone.